Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and apparently my mic is hot on the intro screen, which is really weird because according to OBS, it doesn't exist on the intro screen. There's a fun mystery for you. Oh, technology. I hope everyone's doing all right. It has been another interesting week in the life of Shane. Hey, Vid, how's it going? We mailed that out to you, your giveaway earlier this week, so that should be coming at you. Hey, Graythar. We are still waiting for our international stamps. We ordered those over 2 weeks ago, and I sort of wonder if the international stamps had to come from another country to get here. Ugh. And they're supposed to be arriving, and then they get shipped off to this other thing, and we're tracking them online, and it's like, oh, we bypassed your city and drove another hour and a half down the road so that we can get back to your city, and who knows? Eventually, we will have international stamps. Oh, man. So, yeah, fun times in the world, right? Hope everybody is coping. I hope that the world hasn't ground you down. And I hope that they were actually at our city's distribution center on Monday. And then they got shipped off to another place about an hour and a half south of us so that they can get sent back to us. Am I being called out of lurk mode? No, Joey, I was just commenting that it has taken almost 3 weeks for our international stamps to first even be located, and they sent them to our city, and they were about 2 miles from us, but then they sent them to another city to, I guess, get routed back to us, which is absolutely ridiculous. But welcome, Joey. How is everybody? Let me know. How are you all doing? Hope you're doing all right. Hope everybody's having a good day. Day hasn't been bad. It's just been stressful. Lots of stuff going on in the background, you know, this whole pandemic thing. Yeah. It adds an undue level of stress to just about every operation. You want to go get groceries? Stress. Do you want to go walk around on the walking track? Mask up. Anyway, there's enough of that. What pandemic? I don't know what you're talking about. That's sort of the way that some people in my state in the United States wants to look at it. Like, oh, there's nothing going on. It's all a big hoax, right? Alrighty. So I'll do the spill. I think everybody's familiar with the spill, but the show is Adventures in History, where we try to take history and make it fun again. Because it doesn't have to be boring. I don't think so, anyway. I think history's awesome. But that's why I do the show, right? So, email address is here. If you want to send me an email, please do so. I forgot to change the title. In the crazy mix of the lead up to the show here, I actually lost a photo. And it was showing up as it was there, but then it was not there, and that made me a little upset because I try to prep all this stuff ahead of time, right? And then my mic is hot on the screen. I've got so much weird technical stuff. I am very not pro streamer tonight, so I get -5 pro streamer points, I guess. Maybe I can earn them back as we go. There's my email address. There's my social media stuff. You can give me a follow if you want to. Send me an email if you want to. There's also the Discord. Don't forget about that. Getting a little bit of activity over on the Discord. Not a majority of stuff going. I don't know how you get a majority of stuff on a Discord, but there's stuff going on over there. I've been posting some stuff, and some other people have been posting some stuff, so I think it's kind of fun. Gives me something to do where I, find a good history meme and want to slide that over to everybody else that I know. All right. So, I don't think I have any like big news or anything of that nature. I think that everybody should pretty much be aware of everything. We've got a viewer request episode coming up next Tuesday, which is the 1st, September the 1st, on the Underworld and gates to the Underworld. And I've had a pretty good time working on putting that one together. That one's going to be fun. So don't miss that one. And next Thursday, we are going to have the good old expansion of Persia. But I don't want to spoil too much about that. And then our next viewer request episode was actually a redeemed episode. Kilted Preacher dropped 10,000 adventure points for the history of the KGB, which is going to be an interesting thing. Hopefully I won't get put on any radar. The Russians poisoned one of their own people. And now it's really funny that the Kremlin is doing an investigation on whether or not the Kremlin poisoned this guy. I wonder if they're going to find out that the Kremlin is guilty. Start stocking up on antidotes. Oh, get an EMT on speed dial, right? Who is this? This Shane McInnes. He is sharing all of our secrets. I would actually love to go to Russia. There's some cool stuff over there. Some beautiful cities, some really great history. It's just not really safe. I don't think I'd want to go right now. It's not a thing that I would want to put myself into in the middle of at the moment. The puppy has arrived and is looking out into the yard to see if there is anything to woof at. You see anything, Kaylee? You want to come see me? You want a free puppy? Come here. Come on. No, come up here. No, she wants to get under the table. I don't know why she wants to get under the table. Okay. Now she's sitting on my foot. So I tried. I tried to give you a free puppy sighting. All right. So let's get started. Unless anybody has anything that you want to do off the top. Anybody want to redeem any points or make any comments or ask any questions about anything? No? Well, I gotta wait because there's a delay, right? Okay. All right. How'd this work? Joey, you ask me the capital of a country, and I either tell you what it is if I know it, or you get to brag that I don't know something, which is not particularly surprising because I don't know even half of stuff, but so what, like I don't have Google? It's more of a fun little game to see if people can get one over on me, because I mean I don't know all of the world capitals. I know a lot of them. Azerbaijan. I think I actually know this one. Azerbaijan. Tbilisi is Georgia. I want to say it starts with a V. You got me on that one. I have to Google it. And I'm going to recognize it when I see it. I'm going to go, oh, that one. Baku. I was way off. So the capital is... There you go. Baku. I knew that at one point, because I used to know all of the capitals of all of the countries in Europe and Asia. Did you know the capital of Azerbaijan? Now people are going to start breaking out the... Oh, of course. Okay. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. See how easy it is? You have Google. Well, there you go. There's a fun one. I didn't even know that was a country. Yeah, it's by Georgia and Armenia. Let me show the borders. Boop. There we are. Azerbaijan. Do. And there we are. Baku, capital. There we are. I knew the countries around it. If that counts for anything. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some Greek stuff. In our ongoing Thursday night episodes, we have been slowly but surely coming out of the Bronze Age collapse, and we've been talking about different cultures putting themselves together. And tonight, we're going to be talking about the Greeks, especially a period of time that we call Archaic Greece. And by the end of the discussion, we'll get to what we call Classical Greece. And for anybody that is from a Western culture, United States, Europe, most of Europe, parts of Asia and Africa, this is where a lot of the stuff that we might recognize comes from, because the archaic Greeks are going to build the foundations of Greek culture. That Greek culture goes on to become the basis of Western culture. So a lot of the topics that we're going to cover tonight are going to start sounding really, really familiar, because we still live in a world that's very heavily influenced by these archaic Greek people. Most notably, one of the things that the Greeks do during this time is develop something called a polis. A polis is the Greek word for a city. And this is fairly remarkable because the Greek Dark Ages had lasted for centuries, and the populations of most of the big cities in Greece had tanked down to very, very low, if not zero. So these new cities that start forming in the Iron Age are going to be different. What are you doing, puppy? Do you have a toy that you want to play with? She wants to play with a toy. Anyway, so these cities that they're going to develop are going to start looking a lot like cities that we have today, because they have certain features and they have certain concepts that we're familiar with. Most notably, the idea of citizenship. The Greeks are really going to start pushing this concept of citizenship. And you could have citizenship of one of these polis, and this would bring with it certain rights. You would have certain legal rights in the courts. You would have certain restrictions from punishment. You couldn't be tortured with certain types of torture. You couldn't be killed in certain ways. You had concepts like appeal, where you could actually ask for an appeal to a higher power or to a jury. So this concept of citizenship is fairly important to most countries in the world today. If you know anything about the United States, there are constantly people fighting over here about citizenship rights. Even in 2020, we still don't recognize the citizenship of certain people, or there's all this discussion about immigration and how immigrants should be offered citizenship, because with this title of citizen comes all of these different rights. And there are other places in the world that are having, this citizenship issue. Even with the EU, right? There's been a lot of immigrants in the EU since about 2011. And one of the big things in the EU that they're talking about is how one becomes a citizen. And of course, with the British leaving the EU, that brings a whole other question of, well, now you're British, but do you have EU citizenship? And if you are an EU citizen, but not a British citizen, do you get to stay in Britain? And there's all these questions. Hey, Keenan, sorry. How are you? Welcome to the show. We are talking about archaic Greece and the concept of citizenship that comes out of archaic Greece. Feel free to ask questions if you have anything, or make sarcastic comments, or make dad jokes, or bad puns. All are welcome. Hey, Steph Anomaly, how's it going? Welcome to the show. So, this polis gives this idea of citizenship. Also, well, if you live in a city, there's not always going to be all the cool stuff, like, citizenship. Sometimes there's going to be taxation. And of course, if you live in a city, you're going to pay taxes. And city taxes are, higher than country taxes. It's just the way that it works. And if you work in the city, you're going to, or live in these ancient Greek cities, you're probably going to have to be somehow involved in military service. Citizenship comes with it responsibilities as well. And most of these archaic Greek cities had sort of monetary bases of taxation. And if you fit into a certain tax bracket, you were expected to be able to perform certain military duties. If you were in a very low tax bracket, you might be expected to show up with a spear and a shield. Or if you were in an upper tax bracket, you might be expected to show up to battle with a horse and a chariot. Taxation is theft. Well, it is what it is. So, military service and taxation, right there with you. There's also going to be the concept of public office, and you're going to start seeing the first elected officials. And we'll talk a little bit more about the idea of democracy in just a little bit. But all of these concepts that we talk about very frequently in our world today are going to come from these ancient Greek cities, these ancient Greek polis. And that's a pretty big deal, because how much of our world and the way that we understand our world is built around just those concepts of citizenship, taxation, military service, and public office. If you read the American Constitution or the Constitution of any Western society, they're going to have all four of those built into the very cores of the legal codes, right? No, citizenship means I'm exempt from everything. Oh, you're thinking of bone spurs. That's a deep burn. Voting is for idiots. Oh no, I get the joke, but that's maybe a joke too far. What KP is referring to is there is a movement within certain realms of the United States where people have claimed that they are what are called sovereign citizens, and that they, as these sovereign citizens, have basically immunity from laws that are passed by states because they act as a sovereign individual with power over themselves. It doesn't go over very well. Taxation without representation. Right. That's one of these things that the United States is built upon, which is why it's all over the Constitution, right? And in the Declaration of Independence. But those ideas would not exist without the ancient archaic Greeks. Sounds fake. I don't know. That seems a little questionable, perhaps a bit shaky. Maybe these things are not what they seem. Or maybe they're actually easier than people want to make them. but when the ancient Greeks start living in these polis, the population is going to start going up, and this is partially due to the fact that with the reinstitution of a central government, a lot of the craziness of the Dark Ages sort of gets like tamped down a little bit. Uh, the roving hordes of invading people that had wrecked the Greek world at the end of the Bronze Age are going to be brought under control. Lots of them are actually going to be sort of settled down and incorporated into the larger Greek world, especially these people called the Dorians, who were invaders from the northern part of the Balkan Peninsula. By the way, that brings us to the title of the stream, Balkan on Sunshine. And I hope that gets stuck in your head now. Idiot from idios, someone too selfish to vote. Ah, gotcha. You're welcome. It's supposed to be catchy and goofy. And now the puppy is playing with the chicken, which of course is what's squeaking beside me. So if you hear random squeaking noises, that's the puppy destroying her chicken. It's got squeaker toys all in it. So, but with the peace, you're going to get population rise. And when you get population rise, you're going to have people moving into these cities even more because cities have the cool stuff. We won't go through that whole thing about living in cities being this and that and that. If you want to go back and watch older episodes, you're free to do so. But when the Greeks begin to rebuild their cities, rebuild these polis, they're going to start building them rather formulaically. They're going to be basing them on sort of a generalized expectation of what a city is supposed to look like. And you're going to start seeing elements pop up in all of the cities. And you're going to know that you're in a Greek city because you're going to start seeing these sort of telltale signs. And I have some pictures that I can show you. By the way, there's going to be lots of me wearing the adventure hat in this one. To remind everybody, a couple of summers ago, not this most recent summer, but the last summer, Mac in a lab coat and I spent 2 weeks wandering around Greece and going to all sorts of ancient places. So I've got a lot of fun pictures of a lot of these places that we can share and look at. Yes, so the adventure hat is upon us, and I shall don it. And then we shall look at photos. Free adventure hats for everyone. You're going to save so many channel points. Well, if you want to hear a specific story, you can still spin those if you want to. But let's look at some photos. And we're going to start with this thing right here. And for this first series of 4 photos, what we're going to be talking about are specific pieces of stereotypical Greek cities. And this is a photo of an agora, and it's spelled Agora. And I'll type this here, but you won't be able to see it. When we switch back over in just a second, you'll be able to see these. So what we're looking at here is the ancient city of Philippi, which is 1 million channel point reward adventure hat replica. Someone told me that I should sell adventure hats, like on an Etsy store or something like that. I have considered it, but I don't know. I don't know what an officially licensed adventure hat would look like. I guess it would look like the adventure hat with adventure embroidered on the side, perhaps. Do it. I thought agoraphobia is fear of open spaces. It is. And this big thing that we're looking at right here, this big open space with these nice big flagstones in the middle, is the Agora of Philippi. So it was originally surrounded by a very big colonnade, which is, all of these big columns. And it's this big rectangular area here with all these nice big flat paving stones. This stretch is probably about, I don't know, probably close to 200 meters in length. You would have had individual stalls around the sides of this where people would have been buying or selling goods. This would have been a place for meeting, a place for discussion, a place for voting. If there were votes to be held, this would be done in the agora where everybody could meet and be seen. The city of Philippi here is actually one of the better preserved ancient cities in Greece. Silver's chemical symbol is Ag because silver was the currency of the agora. Ah, you are accurate. Good call, KP. Like a town square. Exactly, Stephanomly. It's exactly a town square. And around it would have been the center of merchandising. And some of these big buildings that are right here off of the agora were really big temples. You would have also seen, if I had put the 50 pictures that I took of this, right over here in the city, there would have been an administrative district where people would have had, like your palace for your king, or your ruling house for your dames, your sort of elite government figure things. So this is an agora, and you're going to find these in almost every single ancient Greek city. Agoras. They're cool things. And by the way, the Romans picked this up and run with it as well. The Roman military camps are even laid out with sort of quasi-agoras in the middle of them. And before long, well, I'm kind of spoiling Alexander the Great, but after Alexander the Great, you're going to start seeing these Greek city designs pop up all over the world. Okay, so there's an agora. Let me switch back to streaming here just long enough for you to see the word agora if you want to go Google it, but it's already been in the chat a couple of times. Cool stuff. All right, so let's look at another one, and you'll know what this one is. Well, or you might know what this one is. It's a pretty common image, but I wanted to make sure that I showed the most famous one of these. This is an Acropolis. An Acropolis is a high part of a city. Yeah, this is a tourist bus. And a really bad van and a couple of taxis. And these show up in all sorts of Greek cities. By the way, if you ever go to Greece, those tourist buses will drive about 1,000 miles an hour, and the people that drive them are worthy of any professional race car driving circuit ever. These people that drive these buses in Greece are amazingly talented and skilled. And they scare the devil out of you because they'll be driving way too fast and make curves that no one should ever be able to make in a vehicle that long. Yes, they are very much crazy drivers. I will wholeheartedly endorse that idea. But what we are looking at here is the Acropolis of Athens. The building here that you see on top is, of course, the Parthenon, one of the most famous architectural structures in the world. But the reason I wanted to show this picture in particular is because usually when you see photos of the Acropolis, they're either completely from above, maybe from something like an airplane or a drone, and you don't really get the concept of how tall the Acropolis actually is. It's way up there. So I'm standing at roughly ground level down here. This flat-topped hill of rock is easily 10 stories tall. Easily. It is absolutely enormous, way up there. We have a Parthenon replica in Nashville. Yes! I've always wanted to actually go see that. It's on my list of places that I want to go. I've been to Nashville, but it's been a very, very long time ago. I would love to go take photos of that and compare them to the photos that I have of the existing one. which would not have been so heavily damaged if the Greeks had not decided to use it to store ammunition during a world war. Probably a bad move. It got blown up. They're actually trying to fix it, which is what all this scaffolding is for. I don't know if you can all see the scaffolding of it, but they're working to sort of put it back together. Anyway, the Acropolis. It's the high part of a city. It's going to have temples on it. It's also going to have important buildings. For example, on top of the Acropolis here in Athens, you're going to find a theater. You're also going to find a sort of a college for all of the different priests, sort of a big dwelling place where a lot of the priests lived. So not just temples, but also very important buildings. You're going to find usually lots of buildings sort of that's kind of on show, right? So the reason you put it up in the high part of the city is so that everybody can see it, usually from a distance. And there are going to be acropoli in... I shouldn't have done that because that's like pluralizing a Greek word by Latin. Acropolis is, I guess, the technical plural of that. You're going to find an acropolis in all of the big ancient cities. Not all of them are as big and cool as the one in Athens, but you can find them. So, like, if you go to Thebes, which is modern day Theba, or if you go to Sparta, or if you go to any of the big cities in Greece, you're going to find areas that are built up with lots of cool temples. And when we went to a few of them, I wanted to pick this one because I figured everybody would know it. We went to several other acropolis. Greek is a funny language. All right. So there's Acropolis. Boom. Acropolis. All right. You're also going to find entertainment stuff, right? Stuff like stadiums. I just want to make sure that I had my right image loaded here. So let me show you a really cool stadium. Boom! Check this guy out. Now, I'm cheating a little bit here because this particular stadium, by the way, this is the biggest and best stadium that I've ever been in. This ancient stadium would have probably sat, goodness, probably close to 7,000 or 8,000 people. It's still currently being excavated, and it's not actually in Greece. This is in a part of Turkey, in a city called Magnesia. And I know that sounds like I'm cheating, or I'm talking about Greeks, and now I'm showing you a picture of something in Turkey. But we will learn later on in our discussion that the Greeks actually colonized the entire western coastline of Turkey, including this region called Ionia, where Magnesia is located. So it's not really cheating. This is a Greek a Greek stadium. This, of course, would have been where you had horse races. You would have also had all sorts of sporting events, javelin throws. I figured it was something like the Greeks spilled over into the... Yeah, they did. The Greeks got really big and they started spreading out everywhere. We'll talk about that substantially. And I've got a great little map that I can show you in just a little while about colonization. For scale, this figure right here is one of my traveling companions. So this little spot right here is a colleague of mine that's about 5'8". So this is a big honkin' stadium. Yeah. Really big friggin' stadium. Magnesia on the Meander. Really, really cool place. The biggest and coolest stadium that I've ever been to. There's another one at Delphi that's actually very, very well preserved, but it's only about half this big. So you're going to see stuff like this because people enjoy being entertained, right? When you got a big population, they all want to go do stuff. What are you going to do? You're going to go entertain them, right? Are you not entertained? Well, I hope you are. And then finally, you're going to start seeing walls. I'm going to build a wall. It's a big, beautiful wall. So this is a big, beautiful Greek wall. This is at a place called Eleutheri. This is a wall that was built between the territory of the ancient Greek city-state of Thebes and the Greek city-state of Athens. It's on the top of a mountain, and Mac in a lab coat and I had to hike up to the top of the mountain. The mountain was significantly steeper than I thought it was, but man, is this a cool wall. This is a early classical era wall. It runs for, well, you know what I can do? I think I should probably just use the Google Earth here, right? Let me see if I can find it. Fortress of Eleutheri. There we go. Maybe I can show this to you from space and it'll kind of get the idea of how big this thing is. Yeah, there we go. So check out this giant wall that was built. The picture that I took was from right about here looking down the wall. Let me switch back to the image here and I'll show you. So this thing right here is a tower that would have been used for defense. And that's this guy right here. Boom. But this is a big honking wall. It guards this mountain pass that would have connected the Theban territory to the Athenian territory. Really, really cool stuff. Absolutely amazing place to go see, but you have to climb up to the top of this mountain to do it. And we parked right about here, and then had to, well, nope, we actually parked right about here. Yeah, because there's the road we turned off on. We parked right about here, and then walked down this road, and then up this mountain to the top up here. Cool stuff. Lots of free adventure heady kind of things tonight, but you can see the outline of the fortress still. It runs right around this way. Big, honking, tall border fortress to protect your territory, because when your population is growing and the other city's population is growing, well, guess what? You're going to run into each other. And that's going to cause trouble. And people are going to argue about food and resources and water and mines. Yeah, all that stuff. So there we go. Can't we all just get along? Well, we could. People arguing? Nah. So just to kind of run everybody down on a little bit of Greek architecture or geography, this is what we call the Peloponnesian Peninsula. This is where Sparta is. Corinth is a big city that sits right here on this little isthmus. Athens is right here. This is the region of Attica. This big island right here. It's hard to tell that it's an island, but it actually is an island. Boom. It's that island is Euboea, the second largest of the Greek islands behind Crete. This guy down here, and Philippi is up this way. We've kind of moved all over the map tonight, but that's okay because Greece is a pretty cool place and it's got lots of cool stuff in it. So, all right, we've talked about the stuff that you would see, right? When you start going to these Greek cities, you're going to see a lot of this stuff. And you're going to recognize that you're in a Greek city because you start recognizing these particular pieces of architecture. But what cities are we talking about? Well, we'll talk about a few because, honestly, during this period of time, there are about 20 different of these polis that are hanging around. They are of varying sizes and...
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I am Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I am Spartacus. Many thanks, KP, for the Twitch Prime sub. I am Spartacus. You are Spartacus. Cheers. I'm sure everybody knows about Twitch Prime in the room, so I don't feel like I need to run the little Twitch Prime thing. But we can anyway. That's all right. I think we are all amongst friends tonight. and that's okay. So it's your job. I understand. So let's talk about a few of these Greek cities, and we will start with probably the most memorable or the most known. We'll start with Athens. Athens is, again, located right here at the end of this sort of peninsula. Modern day city is much larger than the ancient city, but it's right here. Athens, did I spell it right? I spelled it the right way. There's an S. I was just slow in typing it because I can't type and talk at the same time. So what's the deal? Well, I was typing slowly. So what's up with Athens? Well, Athens was probably the most populated of the cities, and it's one of the first ones that sort of gets its act back together. And there's a lot of problems inside of Athens. The biggest problems are mostly class-based, because the ruling elite of Athens had pretty much taken over the complete control of the city, and the sort of regular everyday people had effectively no political power. And that's going to be a big problem. There's going to be lots of arguments between the rich people and the poor people. All the world, yeah, thanks, Marx. If you're talking about Greek cities, it's hard to get away from Marxist ideology, especially because of the stuff that ends up happening in Athens. They start sort of pushing for equality, and what you end up with is a tyrant by the name of Draco. But they were Democrats. Well, they weren't Democrats yet. The actual invention of what we would consider modern demos didn't happen until Cleisthenes, and we'll talk about him in just a second. But you have this ruler in Athens named Draco, who's a tyrant, who basically he's the law and order guy. He is going to be the law and order leader that we need at this time of chaos, where the poor people are trying to stand up for their rights. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Draco's laws are pretty harsh. Basically, if you get caught breaking the law, you're going to get beaten or killed. And there's not really a lot of gray area. You're either in trouble or you're not. And if you're not in trouble, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do. And if you're in trouble, well, yeah, you're busted. And as you might expect, there are different punishments for different classes, and certain people have lighter punishments, and certain people have heavier punishments. And if you've ever heard the word draconian, meaning really, really bad, it comes from this guy. It comes from Draco. Because his laws were draconian. They were very super harsh. But I can't onomatopoeia the Law and Order drum beat. Bung bung. Yeah, Draco is a pretty harsh ruler. And what ends up happening, you know the word draconian, but you never thought it came from this. Very neat. Yeah. Draco is going to get sort of pushed out of power by another guy named Solon, who is much more sort of open and incorporating. Solon is going to get rid of a lot of the requirements for public office. One of the things that had been instated in Athens for a long, long time was this idea that for you to run for a certain political office, or in certain periods of time to run for any public office, you had to be from a rich noble family. So poor people were literally excluded from even attempting to gain public office. Well, Solon goes, that's not really fair. We need to get rid of these requirements, and we need to let anybody that wants to run for public office.
Friends,
Romans,
countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Thanks, Cryomera. Thanks for the lurk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you not familiar, Cryomera, friend of the channel, all-around good person. Go give her a follow if you aren't already. Cool artwork, very chill stream, and has offered me an amazing amount of support, which she absolutely did not have to do. So, there you go. Spread the love. No, you're chill. No, you're chill. So, what's up with Solon and Draco? Oh, I actually have a picture of these guys. Because these are pretty famous people, and they end up being referenced quite a bit. So here we have Draco sitting down, and you can tell just by the look on his face, he's got resting tyrant face. And he's kind of well, let's just be honest, he looks like a jerk. And here we have Solon, who is casually reclining and like, hey man, you gotta be so mean. He's like, no, I don't have to be so mean, but you're just a jerk. And I'm Draco. This, by the way, is part of a big, pretty famous relief that you can go see in a museum if you want to. It's in a museum. So Solon fixes the family requirement thing. Solon's also going to institute a right of appeal, right? So one of the things that Draco really started pushing was like, if you get busted and you get convicted, like you're out, like you're done. If the court says you're guilty, you're guilty. But Solon's like, well, maybe judges can be persuaded because they're of a certain class, and maybe they get it wrong or botch the job because they don't like the poor people. Yes, I'm saying that judges are corrupt. So we need an appeal. We need to be able to we need to be able to take this to the people. We need to be able to say, hey, everybody, do you think this person's guilty? But of course, that can go against you. The courts could say you're innocent, and the people are like, no, he's a jerk. Get rid of him. Right? So appealing to the judges are corrupt? What? My poor baby ears cannot hear this. Guilty until proven innocent. I don't have to be mean. I choose to be mean, right? Resting tyrant face is a new thing, by the way. We now have to judge every person that we see and decide whether or not they have resting tyrant face. I didn't even plan on saying that. It just kind of came out. That Solon, he's so hot right now. I should have said that in the voice. Yeah, as you can tell, Solon's a lot more popular than Draco was, which is why Draco ends up getting pushed out of power and Solon takes over. But Athens isn't done reforming. There's this other guy named Cleisthenes, who is going to be even more important because he introduces these things. Demes or Demos. Cleisthenes is another Athenian ruler, and he figures out, look, we need to not break people up by classes. We need to sort of break people up by region or by parts, and we need to have a kind of a certain number of people, and he makes these things. You got Cleisthenes right the first time, but flub democracy? I'm not sure what that means. So Cleisthenes is the guy that starts making these demes, these voting blocks, sort of voting districts. And each one of these had their own sort of local governments where they could elect their own judges and they could elect their own overseers and sort of political functionaries. But then when they got together to vote, they would all sort of work together. I actually remember an excerpt from a judge's ruling in Norway where it said the accused was obviously guilty because just look at him. Oh, that sucks. Oh, that sucks. When you were typing and speaking, you pounded out Cleisthenes like a champ. My brain works funny. I don't know. Yeah, Joey, that sounds horrible. But of course, I've been accused of showing pictures of our governor and saying things about him based on just what he's appearing as. I should probably be quiet now. Anyway, if you've ever seen the word democracy, that means rule of the demos, which is the rule of the people, which is hopefully what countries are trying to shoot towards now, right? If you're a Western culture and you are a democratically elected official, you are elected by your demes, which is an idea that Cleisthenes came out with way on back in history, you know. So, thanks, Greece. But Athens is only one of these cities. We've also got to look at a few more. And of course, we're going to go with the crowd favorite. Everybody, I'm not going to say it. I'll let you say it. Somebody, anybody. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Stephanopoulos. I knew somebody was going to. I just figured I would let you all have that one. I got you. I am Spartacus. Spartacus is actually a Roman, so he has nothing to do with Sparta. We will die in the shade. That movie is actually covering material that we will not be talking about tonight. Sparta is a city for hundreds of years before that particular event happens. We will talk about the Greco-Persian Wars. It'll be a little bit later on. There are actually quite a few discussions between now and then, but we will get there, and I'll show you Thermopylae, and I'll show you the picture of the big monument that they have there. We'll get there, I promise. It's also an adaptation of a comic book. Yeah, and the comic book's actually pretty good. Lots more stuff in the comic book that's not cool for Twitch TOS, though, if you get what I'm saying. So what's up with Sparta? Well, Sparta is an interesting city. It is much different than Athens. The comic is so much better. I do like the... Well, okay, I like the comic for certain reasons, and I like the movie for certain reasons. And they overlap in some of the reasons. You need an OnlyFans. Yeah, you need an OnlyFans to read some of the comic book. Sparta does have its own sort of founding father. It's this guy. This guy's name is Lycurgus. Such a great name. I'm sure everybody's going to run off and name your firstborn son Lycurgus. All right. Do we have a judge's ruling? Resting tyrant face? Yes or no? I think this guy actually looks kind of nice. Looks like a granddad. I don't know. I'll leave it to the room to decide. But this is Lycurgus. Nah, he looks like a dad. Yeah, I think so too. So what's up with Lycurgus? First off, there's his name. This dude is sort of the guy that sets up the foundation of Sparta. And Sparta's kind of a weird city. And one of the things that the movie actually does pretty well is describe a lot of the ways that things worked in Sparta. You had this guy that was a king, but you had two kings. And there was a rule that the two kings weren't supposed to both be at war at the same time. But Sparta's all about some fighting, right? So if you have one king out fighting, the other king's supposed to kind of stay home and watch the city and run the stuff. But there are also these old guys that sort of act as a council of elders who are going to advise and sometimes overrule the king. He's so grandfatherly to found a society full of sociopathic murderers. Well, I mean, yeah, the Spartans are pretty bad, and they don't shy away from violence. That's for certain. So Lycurgus sets up the two-king structure. He sets up the oversight of the elderly, the Gerousia. It's the ruling council of elders. And they also set up this thing called the Agoge, which I'm sure that if you've either read the comic or seen the movie 300, you know about the Agoge, but very frequently I'll have questions about the Agoge because it just seems so brutal. The Agoge was a school that took young Spartan boys away from their families at about 7 or 8, and for the next 10 years basically turned them into trained fighting and killing machines. Where we get geriatric from, right? So, meaning old, right? So the ruling old council, the Gerousia, is where we get geriatric. The Agoge is rough. You get beaten a lot, especially by the time you get to like your young adulthood. So like your early teenage years to about 16 or 17, you get beaten with sticks by your overseers. You also get starved half to death. You get turned out of the city and told that you have to fend for yourself. Agoge. Yes, that's actually exactly how you spell it. Good call. You get forced to run up mountains carrying logs on your shoulders. They put you in a barrack with 20 or so boys and put food enough for 10 and encourage you to fight and kill and steal and beat the junk out of your friends. The Agoge is rough, but by the time you get out of this, pain is kind of an inconvenience, right? Because you've been beaten and run up mountains carrying tree trunks, and you've been stabbed and fought over and bitten and kicked, and it's just not good. If he dies, he dies. Yeah, exactly. And they really did do the exposure of infants. There was sort of a job where there was a sort of an official in Sparta that would look at all of the newborns, and if there was something wrong with the kid, they'd get chucked off the backside of the hill and left to die. The Spartans don't play around with that kind of stuff. They believe that their job is to dominate the world, and they do for quite some time. The Spartans are going to start growing during this period of time, just like all of the cities. The population's going to start going up. And because the Spartans are so focused on this concept of fighting, they don't really like the idea of farming. And what the Spartans end up doing is going to a nearby city called Messina and conquering the entire city and turning their entire population into slaves, which they called helots. I guess if you grow up in that kind of society, it doesn't really affect you like it does on the outside. Yeah, really. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just the way that they ran things. Normal has a lot of meanings. I always make the joke that normal is a setting on a washing machine. Right? So Messina, this nearby city from Sparta, Sparta, by the way, right down here, I could show it to you. Modern Sparti. I've been there. Right down in here, there's another city called Messina, and basically what Sparta does after they have filled up their little valley right here that they're in is they move over here and take over all of this territory and force effectively this entire chunk of people into servitude. And these are basically slaves that they call helots, and that's what allows the Spartans to be the Spartans. That's what lets them perpetually take all of their men and turn them into war machines, because they have this giant population of slave farmers that continue to make food for them. So good old Sparta, right? Good times in Sparta. War, it's fantastic. What about Corinth? Corinth is an interesting city. It sits right here on this little strip of land between this body of water and this body of water here. We can get into the name of all the bays, and it's kind of inconsequential to the larger port. What you do need to know is that Corinth is a big center of trade, because it controlled a port on this side and a port on this side, and it moved stuff across the land, meaning that you didn't have to go all the way around the Peloponnesian Peninsula to get your trade done. But Corinth is in a weird situation because it is stuck between Athens over here and Sparta over here, which means that Corinth is going to be in a weird position a lot of the time. If you're stuck between two giant powerhouses and one of the powerhouses wants to march an army to the other one's territory, they're going to march right through the middle of Corinthian territory. So what does that mean if you're Corinth? Well, it means you have to be big enough to stick up for yourself. And Corinth is. They are for a very long time ruled by a series of tyrants. They have a very large military, but the cool thing that Corinth really starts pushing is actually sea warfare, naval power, because they have access to these different ports. And I just realized that I should have shown you a picture of Cenchrea, which is the port of Corinth that I've been to, and I didn't do that. Shame on me. But I do have a picture of a trireme, which is pretty neat, and I think is an okay concept. Well, it's only a model. But this is a trireme, and the Corinthians are the ones who are credited with coming up with this stuff. I'll take the consolation picture. Yeah, it's a cool model of a trireme. By the way, trireme called so because it has 3 layers of oars. These things are swift. They are agile. They have a very low draft, which means they can sail into low waters. And they are going to be the backbone of Greek naval power for effectively the next 400 to 500 years. And this is something that Corinth does very well sort of right off the bat, because they have to have something, right? And they're going to defend themselves somehow, and they might as well blockade themselves or be able to keep other people from blockading them. And they are also going to use these to protect their trade, and they're going to use these to start settling out when we talk about colonies. Triremes are cool. The Romans pick up that idea later on, and the Romans kind of go crazy with it. There are certain points where Romans build quinquiremes, which have 5 levels, and it's just the typical Roman take something and blow it way out of proportion kind of thing. Who has resting tyrant face? The leaders of Corinth or the trireme? I mean, the leaders of Corinth were tyrants, so... what did they use for defense on the boats? Well, they would have archers. So let me go back to the picture here. On this top deck, they would actually have lots of space for people to line up with either bows and arrows, or sometimes, depending on how close they wanted to get into naval warfare, you would actually march out your soldiers to this deck, and you would ram the other ship with this nice big pointy thing here. At the end of this would usually be a big metal spike. Yeah, so you would kind of run this into the other ship, and then if you were in the midst of a big naval battle, you would sort of run your guys off of this deck and onto their deck and have a big battle on the surface of these ships. But sometimes you would have bows and arrows on here. In certain later versions, and I do mean very, very later versions, you might occasionally find a small catapult on these. Those are pretty rare because it's just hard to manage. And sometimes you might find like javelineers on here, but throwing a javelin it's kind of a waste of time because it takes a lot of effort to make a javelin, and if you're going to throw one, you might as well go pick it up at the end of the battle. So usually you're going to have archers that are going to try to blow up other people with their bows and arrows, or fire arrows, or you're going to have actual military units on the top so that when you ram the other guy, you can kind of run your guys off. Arrows are easier or cheaper? Absolutely. So a couple more cities, and then we'll sort of get on a little bit more culture stuff, which I know might be the actual interest from a lot of people. But we do need to talk about Chalcis and Eretria. I spelled that wrong. There we go. These two cities are on that big island that I mentioned earlier called Euboea. Yes. So they are over here on this big island right here. And these two cities, one's right about here and the other one's down here at the south. These are going to be the sort of the first cities that really get this concept of colonization. And they're going to start sending out ships to these little islands in the Aegean and sending settlers to increase their trade network. And these two cities are going to set off what will later be just an absolute explosion of Greek colonization. It is absolutely crazy how much people just go buck wild all over the Mediterranean world from the Greek cities. But these are the two that sort of lead the way in that. And it's actually fairly interesting that the island that they're on, Euboea, is one of the few places that didn't absolutely and completely collapse during the Greek Dark Age. Both Chalcis and Eretria had some level of cities that didn't completely evaporate. So they were sort of on the front edge or the cusp of this sort of larger Greek recovery, which also explains why they had enough population to start sending out colonizers, because they had sort of caught on and caught back up faster than other sort of mainland Greek cities. Cool places, though. I didn't get a chance to go out to that island, Euboea, when we were over in Greece. We just didn't have enough time. I could spend probably 3 or 4 months in Greece and not see everything that I would want to. But having been there, I don't know if I want to go back so quickly. I had a lot of places that I got to. The bucket list of Greek cities and places and sites that I wanted to get to got pretty well checked off. There are a couple places that I'm still sort of salty about not getting to see. But travel in Greece is tough. And I won't go into the whole story. That's maybe for an adventure hat later. But it's tough to get around. And the infrastructure there is not necessarily in the best of shape. Greece as a country is going through a lot of economic issues and has been for almost the last decade or so. And there are people there that are amazing that I had a great interaction with. The food is great. It's so beautiful, but some of it's just a headache. And I'll probably end up going back to Greece eventually, but I'll probably go to other places before I do that. So let's talk about this classical Greek culture, because we've mentioned this a few times now. So the archaic Greek period is when we're building all of this stuff, we're coming up with all of this new stuff, we're developing all of this new stuff. But when we get to what we call classical Greece, the foundations had been laid and it was time to blow and go. And there is a lot of stuff that happens during classical Greece that is going to be super influential to the world that we live in. Most specifically, writing. The Greeks during the archaic period had exposure to the Phoenician writing style. By the time they got to the classical Greek period, they had standardized their writing structure into the Greek alphabet, and they had begun writing down their oral histories. During the Dark Ages, there wasn't a lot of writing in Greece. Very, very little. I sort of feel like this is the time period we learn the most about. Yeah, it is, and that's why I'm not going to spend an overwhelmingly large amount of time talking about it, because I feel like if you know about Greece, this is the period of time that you know about. So I'll sort of hit some of the high points, and we'll show some pictures, and I'll talk about a couple of places that are off the beaten path that people don't really get the most out of. But overall, I feel like everybody, if you are comfortable with Greece, are going to be comfortable with this period of time. So this is when you find Homer's oral stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey being standardized and written down into written form. This is when you see the emergence of Greek epic poetry and Greek tragedy and drama. So the big plays, your playwrights, Aeschylus and things like that, you see start showing up. Because of that, you're also going to get, you're going to get theaters, and you're going to have these different genres, and they're all going to be, you're all going to go out and hang out in the theater. I should be wearing the adventure hat right now. This is a theater at a city called Dodona, which is actually one of the cities where a lot of people don't go when you go to Greece, because it's sort of off the beaten path and it's sort of out of the way. But this is actually a transitionary picture, and it goes with the next one, because the city here of Dodona has this big theater, even though it's in sort of an out of the way area, because of its importance with religion. And one of the things that happens during this classical Greek period is not only do they standardize their writing and their literature, they standardize their religion. And you're going to start seeing the good old-fashioned Greek pantheon get set up as, the leading figure. So your Zeus and Athena and all of those good old-fashioned gods and goddesses, Hera and Hades and all of that stuff. That's where they're going to really start getting spread around. And Dodona is actually one of the first places in Greece that is a recognized oracle, a place where you go to get sort of guidance from the gods. It's actually just as old, if not potentially older, than the oracle at Delphi. So you have this big friggin' theater in this out-of-the-way place because it is such an important religious area that people go there all the time. But you're also going to get the emergence of these... Hades is the best Disney villain. If only that movie had anything to do with mythology. You're going to start seeing stuff like this. This is a big temple. It's a temple of Apollo. It's at the city of Corinth. And this is potentially, and I don't know if I necessarily completely believe or agree with this, but a lot of archaeologists sort of point at this temple as being one of the oldest temples of the Greek world. It's built in what's called the Doric style. The Dorians, again, were the people that invaded during the Dark Ages that eventually sort of hybridized with the Greek culture that was existing after the fall of the Mycenaeans and created a lot of this archaic Greek world. Some people even claim that this is the oldest still standing Greek temple. I don't know if we can conclusively say that. It's really old, though. And these columns have been standing up for probably about 2,600 years. Pretty friggin' old stuff. So I'm wearing the adventure hat again, by the way, because I've been to those places. I've been to both Dodona and I've been to Corinth. But you start seeing all this stuff sort of merge together. And we won't talk too much more about all of this sort of classical Greek culture stuff, because I feel like everybody is at least a little bit familiar with that. But what I do want to talk about is Greek colonization, because that's some craftsmanship. It is. It really is. Especially considering how geologically active Greece is. There are earthquakes over there all the time. One of the things that gets brushed over a lot is Greek colonization. And we mentioned that back when we were talking about Chalcis and Eritrea, or Eritrea. And we don't talk about how widely the Greeks colonized the ancient world. We talked about the Phoenicians and how they had colonized everything, and how some of those colonies had even become independent, places like Carthage, cities over in Spain, cities on the islands in the Mediterranean. But the Greeks colonized more than the Phoenicians did. And this is really going to start exploding during the classical Greek period. And the Greeks are going to have a network of trade that is bigger than just about any other empire in the ancient world. Well, you're historically not that far removed from Alexander at this point. Well, you're still 300 years away from Alexander. Over 300 years away from Alexander. Because this starts happening in the 600s, and Alexander isn't running around until the 300s. So, I mean, if you want to look at the grand scheme of time, yeah, it's not that far away. But this is the Greek world. And you're going to start seeing these big polis send out colonies, and they're going to have ties back to home, and you're going to start seeing the earliest developments of this sort of allegiance network where Athens especially is going to be very big in colonization, and Corinth is going to send out colonies, and Argos is going to do colonies, and all of these big cities are going to do colonies. Sparta, not so big on the colonies. They only start just a bit. That's only 300 years after Keith Richards was born. Oh, Keith Richards. Oh, man. I once saw a little meme online, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to find it again, but it was making a really bad joke. It had after the apocalypse, and it showed horseshoe crabs on a beach, and it showed cockroaches, and it's like the only thing that will be around to eat the horseshoe crabs and cockroaches after the apocalypse is Keith Richards. Oh, Keith Richards, please don't ever die. I actually quite like the Rolling Stones. Anyway, so let me show you where I'm talking about when I'm saying that we have these big colonies. Let me show you exactly how widespread the Greek colonies are, because I don't think a lot of people know about this, and I don't think anybody showed me this map when I was in high school or college. I don't think I saw the full extent of this until I got into my grad school level. But look at where the Greeks were. These people were flipping everywhere. We're talking about all the way up into what is today the country of Russia, all over the Black Sea coastline, all around the coastline of what is modern-day Turkey, this big colony down here at Cyrene, all of this southern territory of Italy, over on the island of Sicily here, Corsica and Sardinia, the southern coast of France, Spain. The Greeks are flipping everywhere. And these guys are making bank, because everywhere they are, they're going to be making money, because they're going to start trading. You can see here our big trade cities. So here's Chalcis that we mentioned, Megara and Athens and Corinth and Thera. And what's crazy is that even some of these cities over here, like Phocia and Miletus, which began as colonies, are going to get so big that they start colonies of their own, which is kind of crazy. But the Greeks are everywhere. One or two places that I actually do want to make sure that we point out. Look here at Cyrene, and look here at Naucratis. If you'll remember our discussion from last week when we were talking about the sort of the establishment of Egyptian independence from initially the Assyrians and then their fight against the Babylonians for independence, one of the things that the Egyptians were having to use a lot were Greek mercenaries. And the contacts between Greece and Africa became so great that there was an entire Greek colony inside of Egyptian territory, which of course means that they are potentially really big trouble, which is why the later rulers like Apries and Amasis ended up having to fight the Greeks, because they literally moved in. They brought their entire families, they brought giant populations, and they kind of just took over. Especially this big colony in Cyrene, once Amasis manages to put together all of Egypt and reunifies it, these guys invade because they figure, hey, we could take it over now. So these Greeks are all over the place. And now that I mention warfare, this is also the time that the Greeks established their good old-fashioned fighting style. Their soldiers are called hoplites, and I'll type the word here, and we'll see it when we kind of hop back over. Ha ha ha. And hoplites are going to be light soldiers that fight with light armor and really long spears. And of course, I have lots of fun pictures of this. I really like Bronze Age and Iron Age warfare stuff. So here's some good old-fashioned hoplite helmets. These should be fairly familiar if you've seen any of the Greek movies. The ones in the movies are always much more fancy, and they're always very, very polished and bright and shiny. They probably would not have been shiny. Also, here you can see your good old-fashioned spearheads. Because if you're going to be a soldier, you got to have the thing to kill the other guy with. And these Greek spears were very long. Some of them were about 2 meters long, which is around 6 feet for us using the imperial system. And they fought in a format that we call a phalanx, which is where we get the word phalanges, which are your finger bones. So phalanx basically just means fingers. And you would fight in formation, you would fight in a box formation, you would have a really cool shield like this one that would cover you from about your neckline to your shin when you were in a crouched position. Speaking of shins, you did have really cool shin guards. These are called greaves, and they get kind of fancy depending on where you are. These are pretty nice ones. This, by the way, in one of the museums that we went to, you wish you had those shin guards in soccer. Yeah, these would be probably not allowed. Somebody kick you in one of those, and it would hurt both of you. So your hoplite and your phalanx fighting formation are going to be standardized during the Greek period of time. And this is going to be the Greek style of fighting for hundreds of years. It's going to sort of be their go-to thing. It's going to be almost their signature move, if you will. So this is your Expelliarmus if you're a Harry Potter fan. This is what they go to when they need to fight the bad guys. They all line up in their little format, and they poke their spears out, and they have lines of guys, and they're fighting with this stuff. Another thing Rome adopts from the Greeks. Yeah, they do. And then they go on later to even make it better with the cohort system. But that's many discussions from now. So you get this big push on warfare, and originally the Greeks are going to get hired out as mercenaries, and they make a lot of money doing mercenary fighting. But eventually, as their populations are going to grow, they start fighting each other. And they start beating the junk out of each other, and you start having lots of fights between these Greek cities over food and access to goods and, all the stuff that people always fight over. You insulted my family, you stole my wife, that kind of stuff, right? This Greek military stuff is going to be big, and the Greeks are going to get underestimated by a lot of the larger powers, and that's something to remember because we are going to come back to that. We'll come back to that next week. We're also going to get advances in the arts, and not just the oral and written arts, but also the physical arts. And you're going to start seeing the earliest evolution of what we would know as the Greek statue. And they start, during this period of time, really working on their representation of the physical form. They're going to start moving a little bit away from the ways that other countries did it, and they're going to start developing these freestanding statues instead of doing bas-reliefs, which, of course, like the Assyrians would do on a wall, making a big relief on the wall. We want a freestanding statue. And this is going to lead them to create something that's called a kouros. Am I spelling? Yeah. Which is a freestanding male statue, or a kore, which is a freestanding female statue. And I'll show you one. I should be wearing the adventure hat for all of these photos, but I am not. This is a Koros, and I had to sort of, I don't know, I had to edit this. I figured the Twitch TOS would get a little ticky if I showed a picture of a PP on screen, so you have a nice little sensor bar. But you can start seeing what will one day be the height of Greek art. You can already start seeing a little bit of this focus on the actual form of the human being and correct proportion. You move away from the old Mycenaean versions of art. The Mycenaeans were very impressionistic in their art. They tended to overemphasize the size of like heads especially, and they would have big heads and little arms. But the classical Greeks are going to start working on this concept of correct proportion. Now, of course, by the height of classical Greece, you're going to see much more beautiful pieces of artwork. Not that this isn't beautiful, but you're going to have them develop stuff like the golden ratio, which is phi, all of that stuff. And they're going to be, you know, the good old-fashioned Greek statues that everybody knows and loves. But this Koros is actually a pretty big step forward in Greek physical artwork. There's another one kind of back here in the background. I probably should have blocked that out. Don't look at it. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. PG-rated stream. And finally, one of the things that you're going to start seeing a lot of are these guys. You're going to start seeing coins show up. And these coins are going to be very evidently Greek, because they're all going to start showing Greek poses. This is a little bit of a cheat because this is a coin of Alexander, but it's such a good coin. On one side here you have good old Greek picture of Athena, and on the other side you have a picture of Alexander sitting in a chair with his big ruling scepter and the images of power upon him. But every Greek city is going to start having its own currency. And this is evidence of doing really well, because you're going to be able to have enough bullion to do this stuff. And I also chose that silver coin. This is sort of going back to what KP mentioned earlier. Gold and silver become the standards, but silver is going to be the currency of the people. It's going to be sort of the silver standard. You're going to do buying and selling on these silver coins, and you're going to start seeing them show up in different denominations. They're going to have different values. Some cities, if you go to war with another one of the Greek polis, you're not going to accept their money anymore. You're going to say, you know, take that Corinthian money somewhere else, or take that Athenian money somewhere else. And that's going to, of course, hurt the economy of that city, because then people aren't going to want to get your money. They're going to want to use money that's widely distributable. Not that the silver itself wouldn't have any value, but that it would be a hassle to try to recast that into something that you could use somewhere else. And you have even the earliest examples of economic warfare going all the way back to classical Greece. So this stuff is not, and should not really be, new to us, because, man, this is pretty much a lot of the stuff that we still do today, right? Every time some country does something that we don't like, we slap economic sanctions on them, which is basically the same thing that ancient cities in Greece would do to each other. Okie dokie, ladies and gents. So I am officially wrapped up with my portion, the stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight, but that doesn't mean we have to run away. Remember that there are channel points that you can redeem. I'm around to answer lots of questions if you have any, and we can chit-chat. We can do Adventure Hat stuff. I can give you my opinions. I can talk about what's in the news. We can rank some stuff. We can do whatever you all are interested in. What say you all? Anybody have any requests, any comments, any questions? What I was basically saying at the wrap-up here is that I hope that this shows how important ancient Greece is to our culture, and how much we owe them, and how important it would be for us to understand them. And I was also saying that I could have probably done 5 or 6 different streams just on the ancient and archaic and classical Greeks, but I feel like that would have been a bit like beating of the dead horse, right? I feel like everybody kind of knows about Greeks a little bit. So while I did want to give them credit where credit is due, I did not want to overload the world and just go on and on and on and on and on about the Greeks. Cake muffins. Okay, Grethar, I'm going to be ignorant. And I don't know the difference between cake with a C and cake with a K. So break it down for me. I will admit my ignorance here. I do like cake. Spelled with a C. It's kind of crazy just how much we haven't moved on from these things that they did in old civilizations. Yeah. The cookies, like small, crunchy things with chocolate chips in them. British people call them biscuits. Those things that we have here. We have lots of things here. And if it's, no, it was the brand. Tasty cakes? Oh, yeah, tasty cakes. Those are snack cakes. Tasty cakes. I almost wore the tasty cake shirt again, but it's been too soon. I try to space my shirts out so it looks like I have an actual wardrobe. Snack cakes are not cakes. And as rightfully described here with the K. So Tasty Cake, the brand, is spelled like that. And it's basically a low-rent version of Little Debbie. So I'm going to assume here that I get to put them in the best ever. So the best ever cake that I've ever had is what's called an Italian cream cake. And my wife makes one for me for my birthday every year. And they are, oh my gosh, my mouth is literally watering now just thinking about these things. They are amazing. And they're also super horrible for you. It's nothing but like fat and sugar and, ugh, but they're so good. So Italian cream cake is going to have to be the apex of that. Going to write that down and try baking one. If you'd like, I can ask my wife if she has that recipe in an easily digitally transmissible file, and I'll send it to you. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll post it in the Discord. And that way everybody can make themselves an Italian cream cake. Oh my gosh, they're so good. So that's going to have to be number one. I really do like muffins, though, especially in breakfast, man. A good, cinnamon pecan muffin, you can't really get better than that. So I'm going to have to go, and I know this might seem blasphemy, but I'm going to have to go cake with a C, muffins for usually breakfast stuff, and then tasty cakes. But it's really close, especially the Italian cream cake is hands down on top. It's the king. But the muffins and the tasty cakes are right there beside each other. I really like the tasty cakes. The coffee cake version of the tasty cake is really, really good, but that's almost like the cinnamon pecan muffin. So I like that sort of savory, like nutty, cinnamony kind of taste. That anything that pairs well with coffee is right up my alley. I am a coffee fiend. You have a type. I do have a type, and that's okay. I like really, really rich stuff. If it's sweet enough to make your teeth hurt, I probably love it. Which is horrible for both me and my arteries and my cholesterol level. Savory and bitter things. See, my wife would agree with the bitter stuff. My wife loves dark chocolate. And the darker the chocolate, the better. Up to a point, I should say. We got her I got her for Christmas last year some 95% cacao chocolate bars. And initially she didn't like them because they were like apparently really, really strong. I didn't even try them. I knew better. But now she actually has sort of taken a liking to the 95% cacao. And I can't remember I think it's Lindt, Lindt, that makes that brand that she likes. I'll have to ask her. It was like eating road tar. But you ate it. You liked it, right? All right. Anything else? Anybody? That was a good one. That was a good one, Growth. Made me think on that stuff. The stuff that I brought back from Turkey was the best. Yeah, and this is okay. So this is really hard to find. There is a Turkish confectionery brand called Ulker, and it's spelled with the umlaut over the U. I don't know how to do that in Word, but Ulker makes some 80% dark chocolate, and I brought her some back from Turkey, and she said that's the best chocolate that she's ever had. I believe so. You can correct me if I'm wrong, babe. It's hard to find that stuff, though. I did find an importer that is in New Jersey that imports Turkish confections, but they didn't have Ulker 80% chocolate. They did have one of my favorite cookies ever, which are called Kremalis, and they are amazing. So if you can find on Amazon Ulker Kremalis, man, are they good. I bought about 3 big reams of those Kremalis, and I still have one left. And if I make it through this semester of college, I might just eat the last one. So congratulations for surviving. Amazing savory biscuits. See, I like the savory stuff too. Like if it's a good crunch and it's got some salty savory stuff in there, I can get behind that. And once again, the stream has turned into what Shane likes to eat for junk food, which I think is a fine thing to talk about on stream. That should be your congrats, you survived 2020 reward. Yeah. I might get some more Kremalis and a case of Cadbury cream eggs. I love Cadbury cream eggs. Those are so good. Do you want to come up here and see me? Come on. Oh, look, it's a puppy. Oh, it's a free puppy appearance. Hello, Kaylee. Hello, Miss Puppy. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? So much sugar. Oh, my goodness. Oh, okay. That's almost too much sugar. Hello. Man, my face is now completely covered with puppy slobber. Oh, the puppy. Hey, Cabe. How's it going, man? I will do. Come on now. Friend of the channel, Cave Geek, is with us. Go check out his channel. Really cool stuff. Share the love. Not bad. Working on boring stuff. Got to go make dinner. Be lurking. Oh yeah, no worries, man. These are cool stuff. You should go check him out. We've rated before, so I feel like everybody kind of has a little bit of knowledge. Buitman Parmigiano Reggiano. Oh, so that's a lot of Italian words, and I think I actually know what you're talking about. Are they rectangular, about that big, about yay big, and they come in a sort of a long pack, and they're sort of like yellow? I think I've actually had those before, and if I'm talking about what you're talking about, they are amazing. But I don't know. good food from foreign places. I love foreign food. I think about the package was smaller here. Maybe. Well, I usually go to grocery stores. One of my favorite things to do in foreign countries is to go to grocery stores. I know that seems bizarre, but I really, really enjoy it. Okay. Anybody want to do anything else? Want to spend any more points? You have a free puppy sighting. I think that was a nice little gift. She's been awake the whole stream. Normally she'll go up front on the couch or come over here beside me and just zonk out. Good old puppy sighting. Suddenly, one local market has tons of them. €1 a box. Whoa! I would have bought all of them. Good times. All right. You bought whoa. I don't know if I could have afforded to buy all of that. But, I mean, that's a good price. And for finding something that's hard to find, I don't think I can blame you. All right, let's see who's out there, and we might orchestrate ourselves a raid. Let's see. Who is out there? All right. I've got 3 people that I follow that are online. Neo Realms, we did raid him last time, so I mean we can raid him again if you want to. Let me see what's going on in some of these channels. How about that? And then I can give you a little bit of a preview. Come on now, Twitch. All right. We've got 8 p.m. who's back working on the 3-eyed deer. So we literally raided him last time. Neo Realms is drawing some sort of like submarine-y looking thing. And then we've got good friend of the channel, Art of Lee, who's playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if anybody is interested in going watch somebody play Red Dead Redemption 2. I've watched Lee play Red Dead Redemption 2. He doesn't aim very well, and he gets very excited when people shoot at him, so it's quite enjoyable. The language gets a little out there, though. I personally don't care about the language. I just don't curse on my channel because I try to keep this available for all ages. I'll be happy to take input. Anybody have any input on raid stuff? You're very welcome for the stream, by the way, Steph Anomaly. As always. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, we can go drop back in on 8 p.m. I think we maybe literally actually just raided him last Thursday, though. I try to spread the love around a little bit. Well, and we also don't have to do a raid. I guess we could just say bye and have a good rest of the show. Anybody else have opinions? This is your time to speak. Thank you, Fid. Whatever I want to do. Of course, whatever I want to do. It's my show. I'm just joking. I'm very amenable. So Joey and Grethar, hopefully our international stamps will come in very, very soon. And I will be able to send that out hopefully very, very soon. I apologize for it taking so long. We had no idea that ordering these was going to be such a travail. But chin up. Okie doke. I think let's just call it. I mean, we do raids all the time, and I think everybody here is pretty familiar. So let's just I don't know. Let's kind of fade into the night. How about that? Thank you all so much for hanging out. It really means a lot that you all will spend some time listening to a weird guy run his mouth about history. I really, really do appreciate that. In the crazy, crazy world that we live in right now, being able to come on Twitch and hang out with some people and have some laughs and have some interaction that is wholesome. And I do mean that as actual wholesome, not like just the goofy wholesome that it's kind of become. But with good friends, being able to share some stuff, have some good times, that means a lot to me. It really does. So thank you all seriously for hanging out. I hope you have a good day, or a good night, or a good wherever you are. We will be back on Tuesday, September the 1st for our next viewer request stream. It's going to be a good one. It's what you all chose, and it is Gates to the Underworld. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about exactly what the Underworld is and the different versions of the world. And then we're going to talk about Gates to Hell. Because you crazy cats wanted to. And I always try to give my viewers what they want. So it's going to be fun. I've had a really good time putting that together. And I've actually been to a lot of these places, so I've got some really cool pictures that I can show you. I'm looking forward to it. And then next Thursday night, our regularly scheduled program will be the expansion of Persia. And Persia beating the junk out of everybody. And it'll be good times because we'll have some fun jokes and we'll talk about how bad camels smell. And it'll be a good one. But until then, thank you all very much. I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Stay safe. Do something nice for somebody. And don't tell them about it. All right? That's your homework. All right? See everybody.